Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to AFVRC for what is now round 7 of the season. And we make a return to Donington Park, this time for the GP circuit in an endurance format. My name is Max Ring, and joining me in the comms box tonight is a familiar face this season. It's Joseph Black. How are you, Joseph, on this Wednesday evening?
Very good. Very excited to be back. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks since I was here for Spa. But yeah, it should be very, very good indeed. We've got the endurance race, and it is at a track that the drivers will know well, having visited Donington Park earlier in the season. But a different layout might mean different dynamics between the drivers, and also some of them might try to take the wrong one because iRacing doesn't particularly give you that much of an indicator.
No, certainly does not indeed, but I have had some practice, so that will give them a bit of a benefit. But quickly looking at the championship standings, Jack Goring leads the way by over 200 points. Something to note is before drop rounds, if things stay as they are, he could take the title come Alton Park. Then it's Ben Cullen in second place. Tom Stevens, Chris Pauley. Will Fulks finally breaks into the top 5. He has been flawless every time he has raced. Of course, last time out taking pole and both the victories, which is the status quo of the season so far. Then it's Chris Boland, Ethan Lee, Pete Plastow, Adam Barron and Scott Darville in 10th. And then it's David Wrench, who's dropped all the way down to 11th place. Trumwick, King, Andrews, Forrest, Cross, Barris, Crop, Blackwell and Murphy rounding out the top 20. And then it's Chambers, Slater, Etok and Finch who round out that pro field. Heading into the amateur standings, it's Scott Eastwood, who is not here tonight, so we could see a change in championship lead if Ben Weston does well as he lines up second place, followed by Mark Gladwell, Craig the Jew, who could be higher if it wasn't for poor form throughout the season. There's Glenbury, Josh Lindsay, Colin Scott, Bailey Vernon Higgs, Ryan Worley. Gray rounds out the top 10. And then it's Warmington, Bunsen, Jack, Cross and Hastings who round out the 15 drivers in the AM Championship standings. But Joseph, qualifying is now underway. Of course, these drivers, as you mentioned, will know at least the first half of the circuit, but that back end as you head through the likes of the Fogarty S's and into the 2 hairpins, it's going to be difficult for them to adjust, and we could see a completely different result when what we saw at the very start of the season. But I think both of us will assume Will Fulks will dominate once more.
Yeah, you'd imagine so, but hey, you never know. I'm very interested in the amateur standings tonight, with of course Scott Eastwood not showing up. What all the other drivers will be able to do, and it's pretty much a free hit for all of them to try and make their way up to the top. We're riding on board with Matthew Forrest now, who's going to take the opportunity to, I think, be the first driver to set a lap time on the board. He's in the Pro Championship, and he'll be giving it a go so far. The majority of them have done their out laps, and it's just about seeing what sort of lap times they can set. They've got 17 minutes of qualifying, and so I'd expect that they're going to get the opportunity to set maybe 7 or 8 competitive times out there. If you take into account cool-down laps and all these sorts of things, Forrest will head through the final few corners and will end off his first lap of this qualifying session. The 78 will come to the line in just a few moments' time.
Yes, he certainly will indeed as he makes his way through the final corner. He's got Chris Pauley just behind him as well. So Forrest comes across the line. Is it a valid lap? Yes, it is, but it is instantly beaten by Pauley, who is right on the gearbox of that Porsche and is very much hot on his tail. Chris Pauley still the top time as Plastow, Boland, Goring only 5th fastest after the first runs. The Jew, the fastest AM so far, the only AM to set a lap time, should I say. He's on a 29.1. Then it's Ben Cullen who comes into 7th place. Of course, these first laps, it's drivers just building up tyre temperature, just building into the session as Glenbury now comes to the line as he got a time that beats Craig the Jew. It was a 29.5, but it was not valid. So, of course, that's one thing the drivers need to look out for as well, especially through the Fogarty S, is that chicane, which, unlike last time we came here, it's a left-hand corner into that chicane instead of turning right, hard right onto the main straight. So, of course, track limits are going to be the big factor, especially in the race as well here, Joseph, because that chicane, it's so difficult to get right because you carry so much speed for it.
You certainly do. You really have to throw the car through it, especially in these GT3s where they're just trying to maximise the pace. And you can see how much Adam Barron was pushing, especially in that first part of the segment of the chicane. So, well, it's going to be very interesting to see whether that's going to lose or gain him any time, because, of course, you get a bit of airtime, so you can't put the power down. But at the same time, it will just be a little bit about trying to manage the balance between throwing the car in and just trying to keep it on the straight and narrow. Will Fulks up to the front, and he's going to be getting a 126 as there's a spin in the background. Adam Barron's just passed them, and that will be Lindsay, who's going to have a problem. And, of course, he's going to be getting back onto the road, but just trying to avoid everybody else as he goes. But his first lap time not going to be particularly good, and I don't think his next couple will either, with those tyres being an absolute roasting temperatures.
Yeah, they certainly will be quite hot indeed. It is Will Fulks who, of course, leads the top of the times. He's back where he well and truly is kind of home to at the moment so far this season. Has not lost a competitive session that he has featured in all season long. Gladwell through the old hairpin, taking a big chunk of curb as we now look at Will Fulks, who is up on his lap by around about half a second as he now bounces over the curves through the Fogarty S's, and he now makes his run all the way down into the Melbourne hairpin. A very tricky hairpin to get right. Kind of lures you into that first apex and you think, oh, I can get straight back on the power. But no, that second apex, it narrows on the exit of the corner and it's very, very difficult to get right. Same into Goddard's as well. Naturally understeers a little bit off camber, and you need to just try and pinpoint that apex nicely. And for Will Fulks, as he comes up to line, best that was a 26.9, improves by 0.2 of a second, and it was even faster there from Fulks. And Chris Pooley is half a second behind him on a 27.2, so already got a half a second advantage as Will Fulks for now, as we look back at Glenn Burry in the number 87 machine as he makes his way into that final corner.
Yes, he certainly does, and well, we will see what all the drivers are able to do at the moment. Will Fulks, who's going to be on top of the field, he's got a 26, the first driver, and only driver so far into the 26, as everybody else is going to try to follow through. Chris Pauley at the moment, second place with a 127.2, so finds himself just a little bit further off, and well, we will see further on in the day what he will do, and whether he's going to be able to challenge with Fulks at the top. Matt Forrest finds himself in third place, David Wrench in fourth, and you feel as though they're going to be the main contenders for pole position, but especially the likes of Wrench, who's going to be 2 and a bit tenths off the back of Matt Forrest. He needs to find a decent chunk of time.
Yep, certainly does indeed, as we're now looking at Adam Barron, who is one of the drivers who haven't been able to set lap times just yet. It's him, Darren Barris and Glenn Burry who are yet to get a competitive time on the board and make that a valid competitive time onto the board. So for Barron, as he makes his way through that penultimate corner and now up into the final one, the number 5 machine, can he try and break into that top 10? Mark Gladwell, highest of the AM drivers, he's 11th overall. He's got a healthy few cars in between himself and Vernon Higgs. That was Paulie moving himself up into third fastest, Goring up to second as well. And once again for Adam Barron, no time on the board. Track limit seeming to really scupper a few of these drivers thus far, as David Wrench now makes his way through the Craner curves. We'll see what the number 32 can deliver, of course. A little bit further down in the driver's standings, wasn't here last week, and that really has scuppered his championship chances, because he's now all the way down in, I believe it was 11th place. Yes, 11th place in the standings. Coming into last week, Joseph, he was second in the standings. That's how much a sprint weekend can shake things up if you're not there.
Certainly is. It certainly is indeed, although with, of course, those drop rounds coming into it, we will see how they will stack up with. I mean, we'll see how they all stack up with, of course, those drop rounds coming into effect later on in the season, and they won't matter just yet, but as they get to the final round of the campaign, it will be all about those drop rounds, all about what they can maximise. I quite like a drop round just because it gives you the opportunity to have a poor weekend, or maybe if you're unavailable, like a series like this, like an esports series, where that sort of thing is more common, and you are just going to struggle with turning up every week, and so that gives you the opportunity to still fight for it, even if you are not quite going to be able to be there every single week. Pete Plasto has improved on that lap time, I think, that he set last time out. He goes from 9th to 6th with a 1:27.601 and starts to work his way into contention.
Yep, certainly does indeed. It was instantly taken down a few places, I think, by Ben Cullen. That was in the number 909 machine. Went straight up to 6th and then promoted straight down to 7th. Now looking at Chris Pauly, as he's just behind Matthew Forrest here as they make their way into the back half of the circuit. Pauly, of course, third fastest in this session, has really started to adapt quite nicely. Of course, got his first podium in Silverstone, and that was it's not Silverstone, sorry, in Spa, and that was a big jump over the Fogarty Essex curbs. So he now makes his way down into the Melbourne hairpin. But Pauly, of course, he's made a big step up in performance, in pace, missed out on a second podium in a row at Navarra last week. That was in a very, very tense battle indeed with Pete Plasto, who was able to pick up double podiums last time out, and a little slide as well out of Goddard's for Chris Pauly. What's it going to be, though, as he makes his way to the line? Is it an improvement? Is it a position gained? It is an improvement, and he does find a position, up into second place in front of Jack Goring, but only a few hundredths of a second separate second and third.
Yeah, it's very tight between those two drivers at the moment, and they will look like they're going to try to get even closer. The likes of Matt Forrest trying to get into it, Tom Stevens trying to get into the pit lane, but there is Ben Cullen covering the pit lane at the moment. So any cars coming through the blind final corner might need to have a look at it, as Cullen took the opportunity to move across of the track. But, I mean, he really can't park there. He's had looks like a grip problem, and that is probably the worst possible place you could be on the road.
Certainly he is indeed. I mean, I think he's grateful that he isn't on the racing line, because that would be even worse. But blocking the pit lane entrance, you're going to be a bit of a sitting duck. And for Ben Cullen, he's back into the pits now as we switch over to Ethan Lee, who's currently 8th fastest in the Pro category. We've actually got a nice split between the Pro and the AM drivers. The AM have got their back end of the field, and then the top 13 is all the Pro drivers. The only Pro driver yet to set a lap time and is yet to get into any part of the field is Darren Berris and also Adam Barron. So two drivers still being plagued by those track limits with 8 minutes to go. They need to get a lap time on the board ASAP. Ethan Lee with a little bit of traffic in his way as he now makes his way up into Coppice. And will make his way now down the back straight into that final chicane. But of course, for Barron and Berris here, Joseph, they need laps instantly. They need it ASAP, or they're going to see themselves starting at the back, and it's going to be really, really poor for them to try and make their way not only up into the Pro field, but they've got to navigate all the AMs in the process as well.
Yeah, you certainly do, and all the drivers on the cool-down laps, you really want to make sure that you avoid them. And, well, at the moment, there is quite a few drivers on their cool-down laps as they have different stints in the qualifying session. Some may take 2 cool-down laps because their tyres are cooked or something like that, as Ethan Lee comes to the line. Will he get to 27? Not quite. It's a 28.765, so he may well have just backed out halfway through the lap. So 27.893 for Ethan Lee is the best that he can do so far. But it's just all about trying to manage the traffic perfectly. And that's where an engineer can come in. Where you get those sorts of things in the background, what on earth has happened there? Has there been contact between the 909, or is that just a bit too much power whilst riding the curb?
I think that might have been from riding the curb. I didn't exactly see who that was who went off the road. I believe that could have been the number 24 car of Jack Trunwitt, who might have just went round. And I think that was just riding the curb too aggressively, because of course it bottoms out over that curb if you take too much. And then you try and put your foot down, and the car's just so unstable that it ends up looping itself. Of course, no traction control or ABS in these Porsche Cup cars, and it's just so tricky to be able to get straight onto the power after being on those bumps. We saw it at Navarra as well. And for Trunwitt, no improvement there. Ledoux was able to go up into second place in the AM category. Vernon Higgs gives himself some breathing room to Craig Ledoux as he now goes above Ethan Lee and Tom Stevens. Barron up into 14th in the Pro category. Only Vernon Higgs yet to, only Vernon Higgs, who is the only AM driver separating any pro drivers who have set lap times. Of course, still waiting from times from Darren Barris. Adam Barron has finally been able to get onto the board, but for Craig Ledoux now, as he makes his way up into Coppice, he's currently around 7 tenths down on his previous best. I wouldn't be surprised though, Joseph, just due to the fact the tyres can overheat so easily on these things. He's on a bit of a cool-down lap and getting ready to go again.
Yeah, the real true definition of a cool-down lap is what he's going for at the moment, and hopefully he's going to get the chance to go once again and improve on the time, because of course we've seen him challenge for pole positions before, despite the fact he's one of the AM drivers. We've seen him challenge for overall pole positions, so it'll be very good to see him right back up at the top once again, and yeah, just going around, trundling around, making sure that he's getting all of the braking points right. And the cool-down laps are the time to experiment, I think, for the drivers, just because then they get the opportunity to calm themselves down, to reduce that heart rate, but at the same time, while they're doing that, they can find new lines that they may not have been experimenting on before. Yeah, Craig Ledoux with a 1:28.460. He's going to go again. This might be another push lap for the number 13, and we know how quick Craig Ledoux can be.
Yes, we certainly do. Of course, has taken the AM category's highest qualifying of the season. That was at Spa in that mixed condition session of a P2 overall, and it did not really last long, but it was still something to look out as Mark Gladwell goes up into second place in that AM category, goes up to 14th overall, instantly displaced there by, that would have been, actually no, that was Glenn Burry who went up into second place, just displacing Gladwell there, and there's only 0.04 of a second separating Burry and Gladwell for that battle for second place in the AM category. A little bit further up the field, the likes of Will Fawkes, Chris Pooley, and also Jack Goring. It's still just a few thousandths of a second separating Pooley and Goring, 0.08 to be exact. There is no improvement coming from either driver just yet. Will Fawkes is still half a second clear as Tom Stevens moves himself up into 11th place. Chris Boland now making his way out of Coppice and into the Fogarty S's. He's up by nearly a whole second on his previous best. Forrest up into second place as well. Now, time starting to come in thick and fast. I think the drivers have figured out the circuit, and also here, Joseph, the track certainly starting to rubber in as Will Fawkes goes even faster. 6 tenths clear now of Matt Forrest.
He's getting even quicker at the moment. They're all getting even quicker at the moment. It's very exciting times, and all the drivers have to make sure that they really nail the end of this qualifying session. Otherwise, they can find themselves left behind. Chris Boland dropping down to 8th place at the moment. Is he going to be able to improve on his 1:27.3 that he has as it stands? It looks like he's improved just a little bit, as is that Vernon Higgs up to the top of the AM standings. He's in 13th place overall, but with a 1:27.850, he's thrown his way to the top of the amateur class, just behind Scott Darville and Tom Stevens, who is in 11th place, just trying to challenge for the top 10, not too far off Matty Chambers at this point in time. Between Chambers and Trunwitt, 0.2 of a second, split 10th and 9th place, so there is a big gap to gain to get further up, but there is still a lot of time out there on the circuit, as we've seen by Will Fawkes being in the 26s consistently throughout this lap. Tom Stevens, 27.6, so a second to gain to the pole man. He needs to only find about 0.3 of a second if he wants to challenge further up the field towards 7th or 8th, something like that. But promising signs, and he's going to hope to keep this one going on, as it's pretty quick for himself, pretty quick for Scott Darville further down.
Yeah, very quick indeed from Darville. It's super close throughout this field. I mean, from Jack Trunwitt all the way up to Chris Pooley, it is about 0.2 of a second separating third. I mean, you can go even further than that. Matt Forrest in second place. He's only 14 thousandths clear of Chris Pooley, so you could say about 2.5 tenths of a second separate Jack Trunwitt all the way to Matt Forrest in second. It is ridiculously close at this stage. Adam Barron across the line isn't able to find an improvement, stays 14th fastest. Is anyone on the road going quicker? Tom Stevens looks to be going quite a bit quicker than his previous best, but does have some traffic just in the way, and actually moves over to abort the lap, I think, and he will look to go again. Jack Goring, who's making his way through Coppice now, of course the championship leader, gets a nice slipstream there off the number 32 of David Wrench. Of course, these two were battling for that driver's title for quite some time. For Goring, he's up by about 0.6 of a second. This will be enough to snatch provisional pole away from Will Fulks. But looking at Will Fulks' time on the Delta, he's up by nearly 1.5 seconds. So even though Goring might be able to snatch this one away from Fulks in the dying embers, it looks like the number 31 will be able to snatch it right back with a gauntlet of a lap thrown down.
Yeah, he's going to give it a go here as Jack Goring really giving it a fight at the moment, and out of the final corner he will come. Is this going to be a 26 lap time? Not quite, I don't think. And Jack Goring up to the line. It'll wait just a second. We wait in anticipation to see what the lap was, and it was only a 27.415. So he's lost time in that final lap. And he's lost time with one more lap to go. Pete Plasto is going to go to the line, and he's going to try and find time. He's only 0.22 off of David Wrench. It's very, very close between second all the way down to 6th place at the moment. Pete Plasto continues on, and actually all the way down to about 9th place with Jack Trunwitt. Not too far off them either. Plasto around the final corner. Can he find those improvements that he will need to get as the checkered flag is out, and we will get confirmation of our finishing order?
Yes, we certainly will. Fulks now pushing on to his next attempt, but he is aborted. He will not go any quicker, but it looks like at the moment that pole position will be safe unless somebody pulls a miracle out of the bag. So for Fulks, he will not find an improvement. Matt Forrest doesn't seem like he's finding an improvement either. So his session is done, but a second place, I believe that is going to be his certainly going to be a second fastest, and he's best qualifying of the season. Chris Pauley, is he on an improvement? No, it doesn't seem so. The only driver I really see on the tracker that is improving is Pete Plasto and also Ben Cullen as well. They are certainly looking to try and improve those positions. David Wrench has been black flagged, but he will start from 5th fastest if things stay as they are. So to make our way through the Fogarty S's here with Plasto, currently 6th fastest in the 3-1-2. Can he promote himself up onto that front row of the grid and deliver himself his best qualifying of the season with a second place here for the 40 minutes endurance round? No, he pulls over to the left-hand side, isn't finding an improvement either. It looks like the timing pages are filled with red at the moment. It will be Will Fulks who takes pole position once more. That streak continues at the top of the field. The unmovable object at the very top remains P1, and then it will be Matt Forrest with his best qualifying of the season in 2nd, and crucially championship leader Jack Goring in 4th.
Yeah, Jack Goring in 4th place, David Wrench picking up 5th, and Pete Plasto, Ben Cullen, Chris Boland, Jack Trunwitt, and then Matt Chambers rounding out the top 10. The top 9 split by 0.8 of a second, and if you take Will Fulks out of the equation, the 2nd down to 9th split by 0.2 or 0.32 of a second, so incredibly tight between the top 10 drivers. But we're going to be getting the top few drivers on a beautiful little starting grid, hopefully in a couple of moments' time, as with the rest of the field.
Yes, we certainly will indeed. As you can see, we've got some graphics with the cars on for a change as well. It's Will Fulks and Matthew Forrest who occupy the first row of the grid. Half a second separate those two. Then it's Chris Pauley in 3rd, followed by championship leader in the pro category, Jack Goring in 4th. On row 3, we have David Wrench and Pete Plasto. Of course, Wrench, disappointing last time out not being here, but he wants to try and recover some points. And on row 4, we then have Cullen and Boland, two very fast drivers who are a little bit aggressive as well. Interesting to see what they would do from the 4th row. Then we have on row 5, Jack Trunwitt and Matt Chambers in 9th and 10th. Trunwitt will be looking to bounce back from a disappointing Navarra. Then on row 6, it's Stevens and Darville who occupy the remaining places before we head to the AM category, where it's Craig the Jew who ended up taking that pole position from Bailey, Vernon Higgs, as they both occupy row 7, before we see more of our pro drivers of Ethan Lee and Adam Barron on row 8, followed then by the rest of the AM field with Gladwell and Bury on row 9. Row 10 will occupy Joshua Lindsay and Ben Weston, before finally row 11, it's Darren Barris and Adrian Warmington who round off the grids. Certainly an exciting race to come onto our screens here tonight. 40 minutes of action about to get underway. It's Fulks and Forrest on the front row of the grids. When will those lights go out? And we are racing now. We're underway here in Donington Park, and it's a great start from Chris Pauly from third place on the grid as he's instantly challenging Matthew Forrest for that second place. Wrench to the inside of Goring there as well. Pauly's through up into second place, and Wrench up into fourth. That was a big dive to the inside of Jack Goring, and the championship leader is demoted to fifth instantly as we now head down into the Craner curves, as there's a big check-up from Matthew Forrest, and to the inside goes Jack Goring once more. Onto David Wrench into the old hair, but it's the old switcheroo for Wrench, who gets it all crossed up. Wide then goes, I think that's Pete Plasto, who's off the road. Here comes Ben Cullen, who threads the needle in between the pair of them as they now head up into the next right-hander. It's side by side as we'll make our way up into Coppice Corner, a blind right-handed apex, and it's surely going to be Cullen who comes out on top there. It's free ride in the background involving Jack Trumwit, and I believe that to be also Pete Plasto, and it's a good old up and under from David Wrench, who might have just got the upper hand onto Ben Cullen, who run deep into Coppice Corner, now into the Fogarty Yeses. This is a difficult place to go for an overtake. Cullen bounces over one curb, Wrench over the other, and it will be David Wrench who is just able to hold on, but Ben Cullen pulls over to the right-hand side of the road. I think got a slowdown there, and that's dropped him a heap of positions behind Plasto, Boland, and now potentially Jack Trumwit as well is trying to sling this one all the way around the outside. A frantic opening lap, but Will Fawkes, a dream start from pole position, and for Matthew Forrest, it'd be disappointing to drop from the front row as Vernon Higgs is spun on the Melbourne hairpin, and that's not what he would have wanted when he started second in the AM category.
No, really not what the number 50 would have wanted when he started this race. Of course, he was very, very far at the top of the qualifying for the AM category for a while, but unfortunately he dropped down the order and he hasn't been able to recover with that race start. But we will continue to see what's going to go on in this race as, well, Jack Goring at the moment, fourth place, chasing in behind Matthew Forrest. He's going to give it a go here to try and fight for third place, but it's going to be very, very difficult to manage towards the next few braking zones. He's going to give it a go here. He's down the inside, and that is a very, very good move from Jack Goring. Yes, they've lost range with the top two, but he's given himself the best opportunity to fight up there with them. Matthew Forrest dropping down the position. He's going to want to fight back, but he's got David Wrench, Chris Boland and Pete Plasto all ready to chase in behind. Ben Cullen ready to pounce on any mistakes as well. These three, or these four even, might be starting to have a scrap further down the order, but we will see what they will do, and well, we will see whether they're going to be able to contend with each other.
Yes, they certainly will, as Will Fawkes is now 1.5 seconds clear of Chris Pauly, and thanks to that battling between Forrest and Goring, Pauly has been able to find a second onto the championship leader. Glenn Burry trying to challenge Craig the Jew through the Melbourne hairpin. He's actually had a little bit of a moment behind. That was Joshua Lindsay, who's now fallen into the clutches of Mark Gladwell, who might look to the inside into Goddard's, but it's not going to be a move there for Gladwell, as he's just going to have to sit behind Lindsay. It's further up, it's nearly 3 wide. That was Scott Darville all across the grass, and it's Tom Stevens who now looks to the inside of Jack Trumwit. Darville backed out of things. It's to the inside for Pete. And oh, there's contact. Trumwit forced onto the grass. Tom Stevens nearly tipped round. Somehow is facing in the right direction. Trumwit off the road again as we head through Hollywood, as that's Scott Darville spinning across the road. That could have been a big accident if he did collect into someone. Into the kitty litter goes Scott Darville, and I wonder what happened there. Maybe some contact with Tom Stevens, who was recovering from that incident with Trumwit, as there's Ethan Lee battling away with, I believe that's Pete Plasto just in front of him. No, sorry, it's Adam Barron who is he's scrapping away with. So Ethan Lee now making his way through Coppice. This is over 10th place now as we make our way through the right-hander. I do believe it was Darville and also Stevens who made contact, because Stevens has dropped all the way down to 21st overall. And now to the outside goes Ethan Lee, not late enough on the brakes, and Craig the Jew sees the opportunity to go to the inside, and the number 13 moves himself, got a car in between himself and Glenbury, and moves himself up now into 11th overall, looking for 10th, and nearly went straight into the side of Barron, as there's some contact between himself and Ethan Lee as they make their way through the Melbourne hairpin. Up into Goddard's we shall go. It's the Jew on the inside line, the more favoured line for this next left-hander, but will Lee be able to sling this one all the way around the outside? They're rubbing right up against one another. The Jew will be a bit compromised on the exit, didn't have that clean exit as they're still banging down that main straight. The Jew is furious with Ethan Lee as he was just turning into the side of the number 63, and for Ethan Lee, he is able to hold on to that position, but for Craig the Jew, He needs to calm down, or he's going to be certainly eaten alive by the pack behind.
He will, and he's got Glyn Barry in his class right behind him, a 10th off the back, and he might be going for a move here, Mike Glynn. They're going to be side by side off the back of Ethan Lee, and you can see that Craig Ledoux gets a better exit. That opens the door to Jack Trunwitt as well, who makes his way through on one. Had a look at making his way through on the other, but in the end just backed out. 24 doesn't feel as though he's going to make that move, and Glyn Barry went alongside, but he put the power down on the exit, just got too excited, and massive chunks of wheel spin sees him off of the road, and also off of the road goes Joshua Lindsay. So a huge crying shame for those two drivers who have now dropped to the very back of the order.
Oh, that's so disappointing for both of those AM drivers, especially Lindsay as well, who's looking to come back on for a podium charge, as David Wrench is now having to defend for his life here from Chris Boland, Pete Plasto, and also Ben Cullen. There's Boland having to defend the inside from Plasto, but also try and make it an attack onto the number 32 just in front of him. The quartet of cars now make their way out of the final corner and make their charge all the way down into that first corner. Is it going to be a move here for Chris Boland onto David Wrench? No, it is not. Boland just having to sit behind as we head now through Hollywood. That's a little bit wide from Plasto. Might give Cullen the opportunity to attack. Wrench has opened up that gap out of the first corner and now down the Craner curves into the old hairpin. And it is Wrench who's just able to hold on. But a circuit like Donington, different drivers have their strengths and weaknesses. That's Boland off the road, passed by Plasto and Cullen. There's a lot of gravel there and dirt on the racing line, so potentially just got a little bit too trigger happy and dropped the rear onto the kitty litter.
Yeah, certainly did that. It is not what he would have wanted. He'll continue on, but with a massive chunk taken out of his confidence, and he won't want to continue with something like that. He'll just want to get it out of his mind and continue on, but he's got Ben Cullen and Pete Plasto ahead of him who are ready to fight. So he might be right back into a fight some point soon if Cullen decides to try to take the opportunity on Plasto. Not down into the next braking zone on the 312, but you'd think there'll be at some point, and this might be the opportunity. A wide moment from Pete Plasto, sees Ben Cullen pull alongside, and he's going to give it a chance here around the outside to the next braking zone. But because of the fact that the 312 went so deep, he was able to put the power down so early and now saw himself push once again ahead, but Ben Cullen alongside again. But it just appears as though at the moment Plasto's got the traction.
Yeah, it just seems that Plasto's parking his car in the perfect places. Yes, he may run wide, but he's just able to put the foot down so much earlier. He's able to get such a good drive out the corner that Cullen has no response heading onto the brakes into the next corner. So as we make our way through the Carina curves and the old hairpin, you'll see on the outside here, just on that curb, there is a lot of gravel, and that is where, especially at a crucial traction point like the old hairpin, as you make your way up into the next few corners, it's so important that you get it right. And if you're onto that gravel, your rear of your car starts to slide out, especially on tyres like this. And they've got to be overheating as well, because a lot of these corners are fast, they are flat out, and the rear of the car just scrapes across the circuit. So it's very difficult to keep tyre temperatures cool. There's a lot of gravel just before Coppice as well. Mark Gladwell now putting that pressure onto Craig Ledoux. He was passed by Jack Trunwitt on that previous tour. So the top 12 now all pro cars. As we make our way into the Fogarty S's, Ledoux will defend that inside line from Gladwell, but could compromise his run out the corner, and we could see the number 80 have an opportunity into the Melbourne hairpin. Is he going to look for it late on the brakes? I don't think he will, but is he going to put Ledoux under enough pressure that the number 13 just runs a little bit too far wide?
Yeah, certainly does. Certainly does, unfortunately for him, and that means that he's not able to take the opportunity. Tom Stevens looking in the background as well to try to fight with Scott Darville. Looked to the outside line briefly, but just backed out. Didn't feel as though for the 89 it was going to be a valid move. But out of the final corner, he's going to give it a go here. What has happened there? Why is there so much smoke up? Somebody's gone around. It's Craig Ledoux from the lead of the AM class. A mistake from the 13. Around he goes, and down he goes.
Oh, that's so disappointing for the AM leader, but that's the story of his season. It's these mistakes that happen when either he's put under pressure or it's just a driver error when there is nobody around him. And for Craig Ledoux, another one has occurred. He certainly could have been a championship contender for the season in the AM category, but it's just not gone his way at all. And unfortunately, another mistake, potentially driver error, has cost him dear. For 10 minutes into the race, we still have half hour for him to recover, but that is going to cost him dearly in the championship. And for Craig Ledoux, the broken bullet, it is certainly going to be a big comeback drive indeed. Tom Stevens looking to put the pressure onto Scott Darvill in front. Of course, these two made contact earlier on. They went down into 21st and 20th places respectively. Due to all the carnage that has happened, they're back up to 14th and 15th overall. So it'll be interesting to see what they can deliver. Just in front of Darvill is Ben Weston. Is Darvill going to look to the inside into Goddard's? No, he is not. He's just going to have to sit behind, get the exit, and that might be where he puts a car in between himself and Tom Stevens as he does get the run out of the corner. Down into Redgate we will go. It's Weston on the inside, Darvill on the outside. Of course, Darvill will probably be much more braver onto the brakes, but that inside line will favour Ben Weston as they're just having to run wide there as Darvill and avoiding action of Ben Weston just in front of him. It's actually allowing Tom Stevens to go to the inside line. Can he potentially capitalise here as we now make our way into the Craner curves? Of course, him and Darvill have some history here over the course of the past 10 minutes. And no, just no move being made there from Stevens as we make our way up into McLean's. It's still as they were with Weston, Darvill and Stevens. But I wouldn't be surprised if Darvill goes for a move rather soon.
Yeah, you'd think that he may well be going for it very, very soon indeed. And, well, we will wait and watch. And, well, Tom Stevens at the moment, he may well do just that same thing as they're both waiting on the back of Weston. And that is wide for Weston. This is the chance Darvill's been waiting for. But if he doesn't pounce on it, he will have Tom Stevens on the rear. Both of them so far to the outside line. Both of them trying to go through. And they both go through in the end. So that will be a mistake that has been very much pounced upon.
Certainly has been pounced upon, and quite crucially. But Weston back to the inside on Tom Stevens. Stevens will try the up and under, getting the momentum out of the Melbourne hairpin. Weston actually reacts. He's a little bit scared from Stevens trying the switchback. Gives him enough room, but he'll be on the inside now for the final corner. And is Weston going to be able to hold on to this one? All this battling with Stevens is costing Stevens dear against Scott Darvill just in front of him. And there is going to be Tom Stevens who cuts across aggressively onto Ben Weston. He moves himself now up into 16th overall, of course 15th in class already. But for Tom Stevens, that's another one of the AM drivers he has overtaken. The only AM driver who's in amongst the pro category is Mark Gladwell in that 13th place overall. He has got Darren Berris all over the back of him as they make their way now up into McLean's. And Jack Trumwit is around about 3 seconds clear of the number 80 machine. But for Gladwell, he's not going to be focusing too much on the pro drivers here, will he, Joseph? He'll just be focusing on his own race, scoring some good championship points. And talking about that AM championship, Gladwell currently sits third in the standings, and with a good result, could certainly see himself move up into that top spot.
You'd think so. You'd really think so. And, well, we will wait and watch with bated breath to see what these drivers will do. A lot of them have remained within range of the cars in front, in fact. So it's been very, very good to see all of the drivers just keeping on contending with each other. For example, Gladwell and Berris very close to each other. Plasto, Cullen, Boland and Wrench all within 1 second of each other, although Boland's just dropped outside of that. Weston and Vernon Higgs both close together. And Warmington and Berry, who look like they're going to be side by side as they head through the circuit. Lindsay and Ledoux fighting away as well, as in the end Warmington is going to be in behind Berry, who made the move, and Warmington made the mistake that saw him go round. So, well, I mean, it might be a commentator's curse saying he was close to the other drivers, because now he's dropped to the back of the order.
Yep, he has indeed. Unfortunate there for Warmington as the Jew is now starting to put the pressure on to Joshua Lindsay in front, who runs wide through Redgate as they're now side by side through Hollywood and down into the Craner curves. The Jew gets by nice and easily. I don't think Lindsay was going to be too eager to fight that into a very tricky part of the circuit. And that is now the Jew's comeback drive up into 5th in class. Next driver in front of him will, of course, be Glenn Burry, who is around about 4 seconds clear of him. at this current stage. But for Will Fulks, of course, the leader of this race, we've not mentioned him much here, Joseph, since the opening couple of minutes. He's 5 seconds clear of Jack Goring, but he's actually decided to come into the pit lane now. So for Will Fulks, he's into the pits, coming in for an early pit stop. He's going to have to pray here that he does not come out with traffic in front of him, because that could give Goring the upper hand in over the next next 20 minutes, I would say, depending on how long Goring decides to stay out.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see. Fulks out of the pit lane. Goring needs to make the most of this gap that he's got at the moment, as Will Fulks comes out in 11th overall. He's going to be behind Ethan Lee, and well, he's going to be trying to put all the pressure on Lee. The fastest lap difference between them is 1.1 seconds between the two drivers, so Will Fulks is going to try and close that gap and well, make his way through as quickly as he can. Jack Goring's going to try and make the most of his clean air that he's got, and he hasn't got any pressure from Chris Pauly either, as it's just about the 108 needing to try and pace himself. And that's exactly what he's going to give it a go, as well, he almost beat his personal best last time out, a 127.2. If he can consistently do that, he's going to be in with a great shot of this victory today, if Will Fulks gets caught up with this traffic. So there's a lot that could be going for the 108ers. He wasn't too far off Fulks when he came into the pit lane, but he's going to have to make his own luck.
Yeah, he certainly will indeed. Of course, it was half a second when they came into the pits. It didn't seem like a long pit stop there for Will Fulks, so I think he has filled himself up quite nicely for the remainder of the race. And of course, they don't change tyres, they just do a come in, pit stop for fuel and go again. So has Will Fulks potentially jumped the gun here, gone early, filled himself up quite heavy again, to now just be pushing flat out all the way to the end of this race? This is all over the back of Ethan Lee through Goddard's, and there was a little bit of contact there between Lee and Will Fulks, but it is going to be Ethan Lee now coming into the pit lane. So that's one driver out of Will Fulks' way, but just in front of Lee was Adam Barron, who is not too far down the road, and there you can see as they make their way through Redgate and now into Hollywood, it's not too much of a gap. It's around about a second between Barron and Fulks, so Fulks will have clean air for about a second for now, but he will gain onto Barron quite quickly, and we need to get some move done ever so quickly. Current gap between Goring and Fulks is 16.9 seconds, and it is coming down. So for Will Fulks, he is flying at the moment. Goring needs to really start to put the pressure onto, of course, Will Fulks by just putting in personal best after personal best.
Yeah, it really does have to. And it was a 27.4 for himself last time out, but he's improving on that this time around. So it's really now the 108's time to focus, and he recognises that, which is why he's pushing so hard as we get to about the halfway point of this endurance round around Donington Park. And, well, Will Fulks is going to really try to pressure Adam Barron right now. He's made his way through on a couple of the drivers further back, and now the pressure is all on the number 5, who I don't think will put up too much of a defence. Not many drivers, I think, would put up too much of a defence against a chasing car, but of course we'll have to wait and see. 3/10 the difference between the two, as Fulks is going to come around the final corner and be chasing in behind. The fastest lap for himself is a 26.8, but his fastest lap. He's slightly faster than what he was just able to set last time, as a 27.0, 5/10 quicker than Goring. So he's really making the most of that slipstream while he's got it.
Certainly is indeed. And for Will Fulks, he is flying at the moment, and that gap now down to 16.6 between himself and Jack Goring. Darren Barris is trying to put some pressure onto Adrian Warmington. As look at Fulks as they make their way up into McLean's. To the inside he goes! Onto Barron, too deep into the corner. Barron does the good old switcheroo. He runs off the road himself. Fulks too eager there to get the move done. Completely overshot the corner. Potentially got caught out under braking by Barron, who got straight back through. And that has cost Will Fulks dear. He's lost 2 seconds to Jack Goring. And is this the opportunity for Goring to come into pit lane now? Does he respond, or does he stay out for an extra lap? Because that is a vital error by the number 31, who has looked like a robot all season long. But are the cracks starting to form with the fact he's maybe jumped the gun a bit too soon in the pit stops, come out in traffic and having to scrap his way to recover positions? Goring did not respond by coming into the pit lane. David Wrench is into the pits, but for Will Fulks, he's got to try that move again on Adam Barron, but that was a disastrous McLean's and a disastrous lap.
Yes, it certainly was not what he would have wanted in any way, shape or form. And Will Fulks now up to ninth, trying to go back on Adam Barron and make that move further up. But yeah, we will see whether these drivers are going to be able to make those moves. We'll see what will happen between Goring and Fulks. As we can see, 0.6 the difference between the drivers in terms of the pace on the last lap. So, and that's in favour of Goring. So that is what he would have wanted to see. And he's going to hope that there's going to be a bit more of a defence from Adam Barron. But the inside line beckons for Fulks. And with the better traction, he makes his way through.
Yes, he certainly does indeed. Will Fulks now up into 8th place overall. That time it was a lot cleaner through Schwartz Curve and up into McLean's, and was able to get done nice and easily. Didn't have to do it on the brakes, just did it through the corner, got the exit out of the old hairpin, and he's now got about 3-second gap to Matt Chambers just in front of him. So for Jack Goring, is he going to be able to do something here? Craig the Jew is into the pit lane. It says he's at the top of the standings, but I think he might have got towed back to the pits. So he might have had an accident himself, actually, Craig the Jew. And he's now trundled to the back of the field. Glenn Burry is also down at the back as well. They're both a lap down at this stage. And for Burry, he's come out just behind, I believe that is going to be of Jack Goring, actually, as they make their way down into the old hairpin. And for Goring, he's not really been able to pull a gap onto Chris Pooley. I say that his last lap was about 7/10 quicker than Chris Pooley, but for Jack Goring, that gap has remained about 3 seconds for a majority of this race, and he's not really been able to capitalise on Fulks either coming into the pit lane. So it's just the fact now for Goring that he just needs to hold this pace, be consistent, and just pray Will Fulks falls off near the end, as Scott Darville is really starting to apply some pressure onto Mark Gladwell, who, of course, leads the AM category.
Yes, he certainly does at the moment. And, well, I think Mark Gladwell's going to be pretty happy that he's got 2 pro drivers in between himself and second place in the AM category. And I think he's going to hope that it stays that way with Darville pushing on his back, though I don't think he's going to be able to keep it like that for very much longer with the pressure that Darville and Wrench are going to be able to apply to him very soon. Both of them, of course, being very, very quick indeed. And with more experience on iRacing, that's why they're part of the pro category. And that is why they are just a pit stop ahead as it stands. So David Wrench going to give it a go at the moment. And of course, Scott Darville having his separate issues off in the background as well. Goes, I think that may well be Weston or Vernon Higgs even, as Darville to the inside line. Can he make his way through? He opened up the gap on Gladwell and he opened the door for himself, but Gladwell slamming it firmly shut on the exit with the power that he had. Darville going forward again with very tight inside line around the final corner, and Darville allowing himself the opportunity to just make his way ahead. I don't think Gladwell wanted to fight that one too much.
No, I don't think he did at all. Of course, he knows that his battle is for this AM race lead, as Ethan Lee now looks to the inside of Ben West. And of course, he's made his pit stop for this race, and he's now on the recovery mission and to try and put himself further up throughout the field and get that undercut effect onto everybody else. Will Fulks is getting closer to Chambers in front of him. Forrest is being put under pressure here from, that is actually one of the AM cars, I think, just behind him. But you have got Pete Plasto just in front. That's in the battle for 3rd place at the moment in that pro category, 3rd place overall. And Ben Cullen, you can just see in between himself is Adrian Warmington, actually, in between Forrest and, of course, Ben Cullen. So these 3 have remained very much line astern. They've remained very much with one another. As actually Plasto comes into the pit lane, I was going to say that they've all got very consistent pace to each other, have Cullen, Plasto and Forrest, because ever since the start of this race, they've been somewhat connected by the hip.
Really, really have. And, well, that's exactly the kind of thing that we want to see. We want all of these drivers to remain in locked in battle, really. And the longer the battle goes on, the further it develops, the more impressive it becomes that they're able to keep with each other, and the more fun it becomes to watch, really, because of the fact that they just remain in locked in station and locked in battle all race long, and it begins to develop. They start to try different things, and it becomes very intriguing to watch. So yeah, it's one of those things that we love to see, and even after pit stops, to see drivers staying together as well is very, very fun to see indeed. And well, we are just having a look at Ben Weston slightly further down in the AM category, but it's Mark Gladwell who leads it, and he's on the back of David Wrench, but I don't think the 32 is going to succumb here.
No, Wrench, of course, has made his pit stop. He's just going to be pushing on for now. And interesting to note as well in this pro category battle, especially for that race lead. On that last lap, Jack Goring was just a tenth slower than Will Fulks. It's been about a tenth slower for a majority of this race. And for Fulks, he has actually brought that gap down by quite some margin on this previous tour. So this might even be a fastest lap attempt here from Will Fulks. Be interesting to see what he can do as Matt Forrest now comes into pit lane along with Chris Pooley. So Cullen and Goring stay out along with Chris Boland as well. And where is Will Fulks on the road? He's just making his way into Redgate now. He has got 4 seconds in between himself and Chris Boland. That gap now 16.1 between Will Fulks and championship leader Goring. It is certainly coming down on that last lap. Jack Goring sets a 1:28.1. So something disastrous happened there to Goring. Was it traffic? Was it a mistake? Because he lost 1.1 seconds, where only the lap before it was a tenth of a second to the number 31. So the 1:08 certainly in trouble.
Yeah, at the moment, it doesn't look as though he's going to be able to make the most of that, of the overcut that he was going for, with Will Fulks all the way up to 4th place now, and the gap between himself and the leader 16.2 seconds. Although the 1:08 will have the fresher opportunity to push at the very end of the race, so the 1:08 still has a little bit of hope for himself. David Wrench all over the back of Matt Forrest here, and really trying to pressure the 78, make him make a mistake. And that has been the way that a lot of drivers have made their way through. Not big mistakes, but just making them to maybe miss an apex here or there, maybe miss an upshift or something like that at some point in this race. And now David Wrench tempting to the inside. Is he going to be defended by Matt Forrest? Not quite yet, and throwing himself over the chicane. You can see how much time you gain with the cars ahead when you really try to push it. Tempted him to the inside line, and he did go for it, which means David Wrench may well get the better power down on the exit. It means Matt Forrest will run wide, and it means the 32 will get the opportunity to pull alongside. Who's going to have that better straight line speed? Well, neither of them. They're going to remain neck and neck, and Matt Forrest commits massively to the inside. David Wrench doesn't commit enough to the outside to make the move around it, and so this battle will continue on.
Yeah, Matt Forrest now going to have to defend the inside into Redgate. And now as we make our way through that first corner, Reg taking a really sweeping line to try get the exit into Hollywood and the Craner curves. He's still all over the back here of Matthew Forrest. Is he going to be able to find a move into the old hairpin? It will be bold, it will be brave, but we saw Wrench have a massive battle with, of course, Will Fulks in the opening round as Forrest spins, takes too much curb through the old hairpin. That was some brilliant avoidance from Mark Gladwell to go straight across the grass, but for Matthew Forrest, what was on for a potential podium, unfortunately, it's just unravelled in his own grass, was under pressure, turned in too soon, got dislodged and bumped straight across the inside curb at the old hairpin, and Matthew Forrest sent into a spin, and that has cost him at least about 5 seconds, I would say, to, of course, David Wrench. As Goring is into pit lane. Jack Goring has come into the pits from the race lead, and it was a mistake on that previous lap because the lap just gone before he's come into pit lane, it was the identical lap time between Fulks and Ben Cullen, and Jack Goring, as Will Fulks makes his way down the main straight into Redgate. He has still got an insurmountable lead, as Jack Goring still isn't even out of the pit lane just yet. It is going to be a huge margin between Goring and Fulks. It's going to be 10.2 seconds between Jack Goring and Will Fulks. So for Jack Goring, yeah, I don't think this battle is well and truly on. And once again, the number 31 has played his cards absolutely flawlessly.
Absolutely has Will Fulks with a great pace over the rest of the field. Jack Goring wasn't actually too far back pace-wise, but the undercut seemed to be the strategy to go onto for the drivers. Bailey Vernon Higgs going for the move on Darren Berris, trying to find a gap through. And that's been the way of the land here at Donington. it's sort of not been easy to find the opportunities to make your way through. And it's just about trying to work your way through a driver rather than find an easy overtaking spot, just pick up the slipstream and just go through. But here at Donington Park, it's not been that easy. They've had to work for all of the overtakes they've had to make. And that's why Will Fulks's potential victory is so special, because of the fact that he's worked so hard, he's made all of these overtakes on these drivers, he's gone for that undercut, and it's very much paid off for him. Pete Plastow, latest driver, looking for Chris Pauly in 5th for 4th. And, well, he's only about 3/10 off of the back as Ben Cullen dives in, and Will Fulks re-inherits the lead.
Yep, Will Fulks, of course, leading the way. And about this circuit, that point you mentioned about them having to work for their overtakes, which is good to see, is the fact that this circuit is so high speed. It's very difficult to find time, as Ben Cullen has finally come into the pit lane. It'll be interesting to see where he comes out compared to the likes of Wrench and Boland. I think he has actually been able to overcut Chris Boland there, but for Will Fulks, he certainly had to work, especially against Adam Barron. That was the difficult one. He was a bit too hot into McLean's. That made him fall behind and have to do it all over again. He did get it done just like this into Schwartz curve, like we're seeing with Plastow and Pauly, but Pauly will not back out of this one. Touches onto the grass, just about keeps the car facing in the right direction, goes deep into the corner, and Plastow says, thank you very much. I'll go do the good old switcheroo, cut straight underneath you and move yourself up into 3rd place. 10 more minutes to go. We're getting into crunch time in this race. And for Pete Plastow, he's now up into 3rd place overall. He's looking for a podium. Of course, these two were battling last time out over a podium. That 3rd place in race 1, and it was Pauly who lost out. Plastow was able to pick up that podium in race 1 at Navarra, and race 2 as well. He was able to pick up onto the podium. Pauly, of course, looking for a 2nd podium, and it will be in another endurance event. So, as we make our way out of the Melbourne hairpin up into the final corner, is Pauly going to look for a lunge? No, he's not. He's just trying to alternate his line, try find a better exit, and get the move back done on the 3-1-2. But the number 1 machine is still all over the back of Plastow as they make their way down into Redgate.
Yeah, they do. And, well, Plastow continues to hold on to the position for the time being, but Chris Pauly will want it back and will want to be able to take it, but not if he goes a little bit wide like that. That'll lose him time, and that's lost him about 0.5 of a second. Bailey Vernon Higgs is going to have this fight for the lead of the AM class, and he will make it through. The inside line, Beck and Mark Gladwell dropped back, and Bailey was able to get the power down on the exit well enough to make his way through, and the 50 is now into P1, and Gladwell will want to fight this one back. Don't forget, slightly further up the order as well will be Darren Berris. They'll both try to work together to catch that position and make their way into the 14s in terms of positioning. But we shall wait and we shall watch and wait with bated breath, because these two are very good drivers, and we've seen, of course, especially Mark Gladwell fighting for his life out there, so he's going to try and continue on. Chris Pauly on the back of Pete Plastow for 3rd place. David Wrench almost on the back of Ben Cullen for the time being. But it just feels like there's a little bit of a lull as they prepare themselves for the final couple of laps and the final couple of lunges.
Yeah, they certainly are indeed. Of course, Pauly, he will want to get revenge on Plastow for what happened on the final lap in Navarra. Maybe take it away from Plastow's grasp on the final lap here as well at Donington. Cullen, of course, he was able to pick up a podium last time out as well in race 2. That was a very strong drive from him to finish off in 2nd place there. He'll be looking to at least try and get another top 5 finish to his name. And for David Wrench, it is all just about picking up some points, which are crucial for him, of course, after missing the sprint last time out, missing out on 2 big point scoring opportunities, dropping from 2nd to 11th in the drivers' standings. He is looking to at least reclaim a top 5. He's not been on the pace we know him of just yet, but he is certainly at least in contention for a top 5 finish. Pauly has dropped off the back here of Pete Plastow. That gap now around about 0.8 of a second between the pair. Will Fulks and Jack Goring, that gap now down to 11.3 seconds, so that's going to be something to note. He's found about 4 seconds has Goring over Will Fulks over the past 3 laps. And for David Wrench, applying that pressure onto Ben Cullen, so we make our way through Coppice and down the back straight has the Porsche, the number 32 machine, got the slipstream to make the lunge on the 909.
He's going to hope so, but he doesn't quite have it for this point in time. David Wrench didn't quite have the overspeed to make his way through, so sat back and will go once again, you would imagine, in terms of making the overtake. Is it going to be inside line? Looked like a bit of a tap between the two drivers, and that will open up the door for Chris Boland to get himself involved in the fight with a poor exit for both of the cars ahead. And, well, David Wrench just tucking out from behind, and he was giving a go. It's just trying to fight. He's really trying to fight at this point in time, but there's not much in the way of overspeed that he can do to hold on to the position at the moment and to retake it. But for now, just sits, just waits. There will be a time to take it. It's just right now is not the time.
No, it certainly is not indeed here for David Wrench. He needs to make sure he gets this attack done, or Chris Boland, as we just saw there into the Melbourne hairpin, will be there to capitalise. And of course, for David Wrench, it is all just trying to find his feet, try to size up Ben Cullen just in front of him and see what he can do. Someone I do want to give a shout out to, who even he just made that move for P1 in class, is Bailey Vernon Higgs. On the end of lap 1 at the Melbourne hairpin, he was around. He went down to 7th place in class, was at the back of the field, and he has recovered ever so beautifully to move himself back up into that top spot. And he's now battling with Mark Gladwell and has actually been able to pull away about a second from Gladwell behind. So a big shout out to Vernon Higgs on the drive he's had in this race. He's utilised those 40 minutes that were remaining to really come back and fight his way back through in this one. And he is now leading that AM category, and he has done really well and capitalised on the carnage. Here we see him now heading up into Coppice from McLean's. He's behind Scott Darville. He's got Gladwell, as you can see, just behind him, but he is still pushing on quite nicely. He's not crumbling under that pressure, and he's in a similar livery as well here to Darville and also Will Fulks. So there's something here in each respective class, Joseph, about that green and black livery, because in both classes, they're absolutely lightning quick. And for Vernon Higgs, he's been quick every time he's been here. He's just not been here enough to really show what he can do.
Yeah, he hasn't. It's been unfortunate that he hasn't been able to be here for that long. But yeah, we will see. Of course, throughout the rest of the season, we'll hopefully see him up there as a contender. Hopefully, we'll be getting all of these drivers up there as contenders as the pace improves for quite a few of them. And Bailey Vernon Higgs at the moment could be on for an AM win. What an impressive AM win it would be, having to chase down Mark Gladwell for all that time. Of course, that Craig Ledoux mistake would have helped him on his way. But I think he would have still had the pace to be in and about where Ledoux would have been anyway. And so he's going to take what he can get and go on to what should be a slightly easier amateur victory with Scott Darville just ahead of him, and he might be able to put a little bit of breathing room and a green car in between himself and Mark Gladwell, of course. By green I mean the classes, because of course it is more of a neon yellow. Both the cars pretty identical between those two.
Yeah, very much identical. As Joshua Lindsay's trying to put Ben Weston under some pressure here for 4th place in that AM category. They've got Adrian Warmington just behind them in this scrap. As now we make our way through. Redgate is wide from Lindsay, and that's going to compromise his run all the way down the Craner curves. And he's going to be nowhere near an opportunity for an overtake into the old hairpin. But he's really starting to put Weston under some pressure. And is he going to make a mistake? As you can see, he does run wide through the old hairpin, and that's going to give Lindsay the momentum, the run that he needs up the hill into Schwartz curve and into McLean's. And is he going to be able to make this move to stick to the inside? No, he's just going to have to sit behind. But Weston wide once more. Lindsay might be able to get the opportunity up the inside, and no, Weston just gets the exit he needs once more to stay in front into Coppice. But he's gone wide again, and this time nearly off the road. And Lindsay says, thank you very much. I'll move myself up into 4th place in the AM category, and he is now up into, of course, 4th place, and that's 19th overall. But Weston trying to fight this one back. Warmington just behind them, and also just behind these two, it's going to be that Plasto and Paulie battle, which is certainly one to look out for, because lap traffic in the midst of a battle is certainly going to be difficult to navigate indeed, and there's not many laps to go, so this really could be make or break here for either Plasto or Paulie for 3rd place overall.
It really could, and that is exactly What they would have been wanting to fight for is David Wrench with Ben Cullen. Cullen on the outside line, and he will try to keep himself on the exit of the corner, just breaking down to the next zone. He's very much offline, but somehow he's managed to pull himself ahead. David Wrench can't quite work his way through and work his way alongside, so Ben Cullen is going to take the position, and Wrench is going to succumb it for now, but he knows that he can make that move back up, and he's going to be a little bit frustrated, and sometimes frustration can push you through and can pick you up positions, and David Wrench will be trying to utilise that now, heading into the final minute of this race here around Donington Park. It's been great to watch. Everybody has been fighting pretty much throughout the race. I think we've had a fight going on. I don't think there's been any point at which the action has died down, just because there's always been at least one fight going on, 2 cars going at it, 3 cars going at it, something like that. Everybody at some point has been within a second of somebody else, and so that is what's made this one very, very good to watch. But throughout all of that, Will Fawkes is going to be right up at the very top of this field, and you feel as though he's going to be impenetrable for yet another round. Jack Goring gave him a go earlier on. He was a little bit quicker in the first part of it. Will Fawkes managed to break away to about 6 seconds. Jack Goring was trying to work it back in, but now onto this final lap, the gap is 10.3, and well, that's about as insurmountable as it can get.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. So Will Fawkes starts the final lap. This is going to be more of a victory parade lap for the number 31 as Matthew Forrest tries to hunt down Matthew Chambers just in front of Matt Chambers, sorry, just in front of him. And Chris Bolan might have just made a move onto David Wrench there as David Wrench is coming to pit lane. He must have underfueled. David Wrench into pit lane. I think he's not left the session. He's just pulled into the pits. I think he went 1 lap too short on the fuel, and that's really run David Wrench's session. I think he's retired from the session as well. But for Will Fawkes, he's now coming through Coppice. That's put no pressure onto Ben Cullen, so he will claim that 5th place unless a mistake is made and allows Chris Bolan to catch up. But at the front of this field, the number 31 machine, Will Fawkes, has once again shown why he is the class of the field. He has not been beaten in a single competitive session all season long when he has attended. Of course, was not there for a few races at the start of the season, most notably at Snetterton and also at Silverstone. But every other race he's attended, he has been the talking point. He has been the man that has just conquered this season. In every championship, you need the ultimate fastest, and Will Fawkes will dominate once again. The streak continues here for the number 31 as Fawkes once again claims a race victory here this time at Donington Park. It's his 3rd race win at Donington, and the streak certainly is continuing. It's 8-0 compared to the rest of the field in races. He has absolutely romped the field here at Donington. Goring with no response to the pace of the 31, and it will be Goring from Chris Pooley who will end up in 3rd, because something must have happened to Pete Plasto as he unfortunately fell down to 4th. And at the front of the Anfield, it's a similar livery. It's the same livery, just with pink wing mirrors for the number 50 as he makes his way through the Melbourne hairpin and up into the final corners. And Bailey Vernon Higgs, who was backwards at the start of the opening lap, will come through the final corner and up to the line to take an unlikely AM victory. He's weathered the storm, he's weathered the chaos, and Bailey Vernon Higgs wins in the AM category too to make it a green 1-1 in the Pro and AM category. And Bailey Vernon Higgs from spin to win in the number 50. A great drive to hunt down the field in front of him, and for Vernon Higgs, take a bow, certainly a drive of the season, and it will go down as a great chance for him to revitalise his championships. But at the front of the field, once again, it is Will Fawkes who takes that pro race win from Jack Goring, Chris Pooley, Pete Plasto, Ben Cullen, Bolan, Barron, Trumwit, Chambers and Forrest rounds out that top 10. What it could have been for Forrest if it wasn't for that spin. Then it was Ethan Lee, Scott Darvill, Stevens, Barris and Wrench who retired on that final lap, thanks to, I think, just underfueling ever so slightly. Then in the AM class, it was Higgs who takes an unlikely victory, only just from Mark Gladwell. Then Bury who rounds up the podium. Warmington, Lindsay, Weston and Ledoux rounds out the field. But Joseph, what a race that was. And for Fawkes, it's domination, and once again the streak remains. But for Vernon Higgs, take a bow from spin to win. A brilliant performance from the number 50.
Oh my goodness me, it was. It was an absolutely unbelievable performance from him, and thoroughly deserved victory. But yeah, well, folks, again, there's only so much we can say about him because he's just so unbelievably good. And, well, he's a great talent. Wouldn't be surprised if, well, he seals that title very, very soon indeed, if he hasn't got it already, because I know it was possible heading into this round, but I haven't quite done the maths to see whether that was the case. But yeah, great performance from Will at the top of the field, Goring in second place. Very well done as well. But Paulie, Plasto, Cullen, Boland, all of those drivers fighting it out. And I think we're going to get the opportunity to speak to third place Chris Paulie, who, well, Max, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Yes, let's speak to Chris Paulie then. Let's bring him into the commentary box. Hello, Chris. Can you hear us?
I can indeed. How's it going?
Very good, thank you, Chris. Of course, congratulations on that third place. And of course, how are you on this Wednesday evening? How did you find that race, and how was things in that endurance?
It was good. I'm obviously buzzing to get a third place. It seems to, anytime we have these endurance races, I seem to get a good result out of it. So, yeah, just really happy. Obviously, I got lucky that Pete Plasto seemed to run out of fuel, I guess, at the end. I'd wondered how he'd caught up so much, and clearly he didn't fuel it enough. So, lucky with the third place, but glad to get him back after last week.
Yeah, I was going to mention about Pete Plasto because he was about, I think it was a second in front of you coming onto that final lap, then dropped 3 seconds behind by the time you made it to the line. I thought you might have made a mistake, but running out of fuel. Talking about that fuel, of course, Fulks came in really early. Did you think he was going to be able to make it to the end as well, or was it very much you thought he put a full tank in and just would push all the way to the end?
Yeah, I didn't know what his plan was. I mean, he obviously was able to get enough fuel to make it to the end. I usually try and run it as late as possible, but I ended up cutting it pretty close, which is why I was surprised that Pete was able to close up so much in the pit stops. But obviously, it's just about worked out for me in the end.
Yeah, it certainly has indeed. And just how did you find that race? Of course, Donington, a very difficult circuit, especially when it comes to track limits and everything. There was a lot of gravel and grass all over the circuit as well. Was it tricky conditions out there today, or was it very similar to what we saw on the national circuit?
I really find these cars hard to drive in the second half of the race. I don't know if it's my driving style, probably is, but I tend to find I've just got no grip towards the end of the race. So I found that difficult. I love Donington Park. It's a great circuit in real life and the sim. So yeah, it's definitely a place that I enjoy. For me, it's just nice to finally get some consistency, get a couple of podiums, and yeah, be back. I think there's a huge gap to Will Folks, Jack Goring. I think with a bit of practice, I might be able to be on his pace. But yeah, just happy to be on the podium, really.
Yeah, again, second podium of the season. You got back at Pete, as you mentioned. Another final lap battle, technically, between you two. Just how good does it feel after the disappointment there at Navarra to be on the podium instantly at the round after and really just be able to show that you are there consistently? And even over the longer races, as you mentioned, that's where you get your best result. Just over those longer races, showing that you have that consistent pace to be there fighting at the front.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I said it last time I was on the podium that I really struggled at the start of the season to just get used to the car. I thought I didn't have any pace really for even top 10, but now it's nice. It seems to be coming together. Something's clicked in the last few weeks. And yeah, it's just, if I can keep these consistent results, you know, I might be able to get a podium overall. Who knows?
Hopefully you certainly can. And of course, one last one from me before I throw you over to Joseph is, of course, we head up to Scotland next week. We head to Knockhill, a very tricky circuit, a lot of elevation, and a place where you really have to smack those curves to be fast. Are you confident around Knockhill, or is it going to be a circuit where, of course, you're not so confident in the car? It's just going to be a matter of survival in that sprint format?
I'm not sure who chose Knockhill for these cars, but I don't think they're going to suit it at all. But when we've gone there in the past few seasons, I've always done okay there. Like you said, it's quite an aggressive circuit, so you've just got to be really confident over the bumps. So yeah, I think though, like you said, it's going to be a race of survival. So it's going to be just trying to stay out of trouble. It's a narrow circuit in quick cars. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Certainly will be indeed. It's going to be exciting for us to watch at home. And Joseph, do you have any questions for Chris?
It's just one from me about, well, just of course we had an endurance round this race. We've had sprint races across the weekends. Just what are your thoughts on the formats that we've been taking?
I really like it. I like the mix. As I've been saying, these endurance formats seem to suit me better. I don't know why it is. I think I could settle down into them nicely. But it's nice to have those kind of rapid sprint race formats too. So for me, having 3 of these endurance in the season is great, man. And it's, you've seen how competitive it is in kind of the top 10, maybe bar Will Folks. It's kind of split by a second. It's really close.
Well, that's all from me. But yeah, congratulations on your podium, and thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, gents. Enjoy your evening.
To Chris, and I think that's going to be the only interview we get tonight. Here, Joseph, actually. Nobody else is lining up at the minute for an interview. So, shall we get our driver of the day underway? So, I'll start this one. I usually throw it to whoever's alongside me, but I'll start this one for once. I'll make it fair. I'm going to give it to Vernon Higgs. I think that was kind of obvious with how much I was quote-unquote glazing him in those latter stages. But no, it was just a really good drive, I thought, especially from an AM driver. He was there who capitalised on the carnage, and Murray didn't really put a foot wrong all race, and he was still able to bring that gap down and get the move done in the end. So I'm going to go for Vernon Higgs. What about you, Joseph?
It's a hard one, this one. I think it's hard to look past Vernon Higgs. I've been staring at the list, going, hang on, who here has really impressed me more than him? And I don't think I've come up with an answer. So for me, I think I'm going to have to agree with you. Unfortunately, it's the boring answer, but I think Vernon Higgs for me.
Vernon Higgs will take the driver of the day then, and that, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be all from us here at AFVRC. Next week, we take a trip over to Scotland, a trip across the border to Scotland for Knock Hill. Joseph, is there any last words from you before the stream? Anything you can say about Knock Hill that you're potentially looking forward to next week?
I think it's going to be a great round next time up in Scotland at Knock Hill. I think it's going to be a very exciting one. I think everybody at home watching now should be watching again next week.
You kind of sounded like Aidan Moffat there. And if you don't know who that is, he's a British touring car driver. And I think that was quite a good Scottish accent there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a very aggressive circuit. You really got to fly over those curves, especially at the chicane in the middle sector. It's going to be fun, and expect a lot of chaos, and I'm expecting a lot of drivers, especially the ones in the mid-pack there, Joseph, to make some spins. But that's going to be all from us here, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see you next week at 8 PM UK time, 9 PM European time, for a trip over to Scotland as we make our way to Knock Hill. So stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you in the next one. Thank you, and bye-bye.